Throughout the 35-year history of the franchise, the vast majority of Transformers toys and media have originated in two regions of the world: North America, home to Hasbro, and Japan, home to Takara Tomy. But for this week's episode, Patreon supporter Safior wanted to hear more about Transformers characters from other parts of the globe. These are the basics on Transformers Around the World. Next to America and Japan, the most significant contributions to the world of the Transformers have come from Europe. In the 1980s and 90s, the continent was the birthplace of scores of original Transformers characters, more than can comfortably be named in a video like this, many of whom would later go on to greater fame by making the jump to American media. Some of the most significant were created for the United Kingdom's Transformers comic published by Marvel. Easily the most important piece of European Transformers media, the comic often featured original characters created by the series' writers and artists who weren't part of the Transformers toy line. Some of the most famous include the Transformers creator, Primus, the God of Light, Autobot Resistance leader Emirate Zaron, Impactor, leader of the Autobot commando unit The Wreckers, conjoined Autobot twins Rack and Ruin, evil Autobot scientist Flame, and the robotic freelance peacekeeping agent Death's Head, who Marvel would even later spin off into his own comic. Germany also had its own version of the Marvel comic which did the same, with the most notable original creation from its pages being the Autobot Black Cat, a green recolor of Ravage. But Europe's original Transformers weren't limited to characters invented for comics. Though 1990 marked the final year of the original Transformers toy line in the United States, new toys continued to be released in Europe and Australasia throughout the first half of the 90s that were never made available in the US. 1991 introduced a new range of Action Master figures, non-transforming robots who each came with a partner robot or vehicle that converted into a suit of armor for them to wear. The largest took the form of battery-powered, motorized exosuits. Also available were the Action Master Elites, 4 figures with push-button gimmicks that flipped the Action Master concept on its head by actually transforming. 1992 brought the Turbo Masters, a team of Autobots with missile-firing engines, and the Predators, missile-firing Decepticons with built-in slide viewers. In 1993, there were the Obliterators, Pyro and Clench, with missile-firing battle station trailers, the Autobot Lightformers and Decepticon Tracons, Transformers with large weapons platforms that used light-piped scopes to simulate firing weapons, and the water-squirting Autobot Aquaspeeders and Decepticon Stormtroopers, who changed colour in warm water. Even in 1995, at the tail end of the Generation 2 toy line, there were the Power Masters, Autobots and Decepticons with pullback motors. The early 1990s also saw the release of several toys that had previously been exclusive to the Japanese market, including the infamous Decepticon Overlord and the Combiner teams the Brain Masters and the Breast Force, who were recolored and renamed to become new Autobot groups known as the Motivators and the Rescue Force, respectively. Today, several of Europe's original characters have risen to stand shoulder to shoulder with the American and Japanese casts, thanks in large part to the efforts of European creators and fans who have gone on to work on American media, and who have introduced the characters to new audiences by including them in their stories. For example, the Turbo Masters had a starring role in Dreamwave Productions' Age of Wrath comic. IDW Publishing's Last Stand of the Wreckers brought Impactor and Overlord back into the spotlight, and made instant fan favourites out of Pyro, Turbomaster Rotorstorm, and Lightformer Iron Fist. Other characters like Turbomaster leader Thunderclash, Action Master Circuit, and Power Master Bullet Bike have also had memorable roles to play in other stories from IDW and from fun publications. Always fond of a deep-cut obscure reference, Fun Publications have also been responsible for creating new toys of several of these characters over the years, released both through the official Transformers convention BotCon and the Transformers Collectors Club, while a small number, like Impactor and Overlord, would even gain such popularity that brand new mass-market toys of them would be created by Hasbro and Takara. Rack and Ruin recently made the incredibly rare jump to television, appearing in the Transformers Cyberverse animated series. But far and away the most famous is Primus himself, a character who's become a fixture of Transformers lore, featured in multiple comics and cartoons, and who had a huge toy made in his image in 2005's Transformers Cybertron toy line. New European original characters have still occasionally popped up in the 21st century, like the impossibly cool Autobot Afterburn in the UK's Transformers animated comic in 2008. Swerve, an original toy designed for a European market Chevrolet promotional campaign. Or Bendy Bus Prime, an Autobot created by Paramount as part of a promotional tie-in with the home media release of Revenge of the Fallen in 2009. In 2016, a Russian original YouTube cartoon, Transformers Portal, crossed over the worlds of Robots in Disguise and the Prime Wars trilogy, hosted by a mysterious figure named The Watcher. After Europe, some of the most notable international Transformers came from South America. In the 1980s, Transformers toys were distributed in Brazil by a company named Estrela. They licensed only a few figures from Hasbro, namely the 1984 Autobot mini-vehicles and the Jump Starters, Topspin and Twin Twist, who they recolored and renamed to create new characters. The Jump Starters were available in two color schemes each, rebranded as Saltman X and Saltman Z, from the Portuguese salto, meaning jump, while the mini-vehicles were released in four color schemes each, and would later be broken up into two newly created factions, the heroic Optimus, consisting of Volks, Carrera, and Sedan, and the evil Malignus, comprising Pickup, Jeep, and Camaro. The rest of Estrela's Transformers range was made up of figures acquired from other Japanese toy companies, which weren't released as part of the Transformers line by Hasbro or Takara. There were the bat-robo, turbo and pickup, vehicles with friction motors that propelled them forward, who would automatically convert to robot mode via spring-loaded mechanism when they collided with something. These were licensed from Fujisho, who had originally released them in Japan as the Powertrons. The Powertrons were released in English-speaking markets by the Ertl company. And then there were the Elytrics, Jeep, Porsche, and Esporche, remote control operated toys that could transform with the push of a switch. These three were licensed from Yonezawa Toys, who had originally released them as part of their Remote Change Robo series. In North America, they were released by Village Toys as part of the Convertibots toy line. Certain of the mini-vehicles were also available in a variety of other colors from Peruvian company Linsa and Argentinian company Antex. Antex also released Estrela's recolored Jump Starters, and in 1994 recolored the two figures again to become Robotman X and Robotman Z. Also in Argentina, Commando Toys released the Walkie-Talkie Robot, a working walkie-talkie that recycled the design of the anime robot Godmars, and the Radio AM Robot, an original toy that mashed up the designs of Soundwave, Blaster, Megatron, and Omega Supreme, and transformed into a working radio. Though notable curiosities as some of the earliest foreign additions to the Transformers toy line, the South American characters haven't really gone on to any greater fame in media. They've mostly been limited to rare cameos and name drops in Fun Publications stories. Except for the Optimus characters, Carrera, Sedan, and Volks, who actually appeared on television in 2009 as background characters in Transformers Animated. International releases of Transformers toys don't tend to be so wildly different in the 21st century, but oddities do still occur. For instance, when South Korean company Sonokong licensed the Car Robots toy line from Takara in 2003, they bulked it up by throwing in a couple of Predacons from the Beast Wars 2nd toy line. Those with vehicular alternate modes were marketed as new Autobot characters, but Beast Wars 2nd Galvatron was renamed Gigatron Z, reconceptualized as a new form for Gigatron, leader of the Car Robots Predacons. The 2010s have seen international media continue to create original characters without toys. In 2012, the first Australian original Transformers were introduced, as part of a promotional tie-in with the Fall of Cybertron video game, when developers High Moon Studios teamed up with Ford Australia to design a pair of new Autobots who transformed into Ford vehicles. Chosen by Australian fans on Facebook, they were the Ford Falcon XR6 Turbo Sedan Falcatron and the Ford Ranger Wildtrak Torque. 2012 also saw the release of the short-lived MMORPG Transformers Online in China, which featured dozens of original characters with florid names like Vermilion Thunderbolt and Stardust Wanderer. Two of the game's Decepticon characters, the backstabbing Doomwings and the insatiable Ursa Major, would unexpectedly show up in the IDW comic ROM vs. Transformers in 2017. Later this year, the first ever Chinese original Transformers animated series will be released, Transformers Ne Zha, which will combine the Transformers story with the Chinese legend of Prince Ne Zha. Well known in Chinese popular culture, Ne Zha rides on wheels of fire and wind, and is the patron god of professional drivers, an automotive connection that seems to explain the thinking behind this unusual crossover. We know virtually nothing about this series right now, but word is it will also have its own toy line, and Hasbro's Brian Goldner recently said that it's possible the series might be released globally. Now, this episode has been only the briefest overview of Transformers from around the world. Many of the groups, characters, and even companies that I've talked about here could easily have their own dedicated episodes in the future. There's a whole world of Transformers out there, and I'll get through them all someday. And those are the basics on Transformers from around the world. Thanks to Safior for sponsoring this episode. Did you grow up with any of these characters, or did this episode introduce you to some that you'd never heard of before? Share in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more Transformers history, and if you can, please consider supporting the series on Patreon.